Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
So summer special at Country Cold Store. Get ready to beat the heat with amazing deals on frozen meats and chilled products. Choose from a wide variety of top quality products available at our wholesale department and mini mart. Stock up today and enjoy unbeatable freshness and savings this summer. Call us now for more information at 440-3335. This offer is valid while stocks last.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
You're listening to Eddie Frederick, where good values make great radio.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What a plum-pleasing pleasure it is to be with you once more. Welcome to Edification 289 on this 42nd anniversary of the crash of the Grenada Revolution back on 19th October 1983. It took us a whopping 40 years before the day is properly observed as National Heroes Day. As we observe this special day in our history, it is so pitiful, folks, so pitiful to witness all the uninformed discussions playing out before us as the geopolitics of the hemisphere heat up. Oh Lord, if only our people knew their history and efforts over the years were not made to dumb them down, resulting in dunceness celebrated all around us by not making our history available to them, especially our more recent history in the post-World War II to the present context. Sad. So much has happened between then and now that had our people known our very history, our discourse would have been more informed and thus mature. But that is not to be, as for the most part in our post-independence era, we are more inclined towards ignorance as a byproduct of taking the path of least resistance. Our topic today: if there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And that takes the cake here today, folks. Then the enemy inside many of our people is supported rather by and encouraged by, I would say, our insistence on remaining ignorant of so many important things, notwithstanding that we have in our hands the source of knowledge and we use it to take pictures and LOL and sup one another, instead of making ourselves intelligent and thus, worthy to participate in democracy. I always tell you that democracy presupposes its participants are intelligent. And if you are not intelligent, you have no right participating in democracy. You see, we don't have to look too far to observe the manifestation of that enemy of many of us that we carry around on the inside of us. We see it by the choices we make. Choices in who we hang out with, who we gravitate to, who we support politically, what we eat, what we wear, and what we do and do not do. Yet for all, we blame others for our failings without realizing that we are our worst enemies. A lot of us need to be protected from ourselves. And as long as we refuse to wise up and take responsibility for our own personal growth and development, that is, we will remain stuck in the rut we hate, but not minded to do anything about in order to get out. As soon as you enter the room today, folks, remember to share, comment, like, love, react, and interact as you normally do. For those of you on YouTube, do the same and hit the subscribe button so that, of course, you can get your notifications readily. Just a short reminder here. Remember, I have 2 pages on Facebook. My private, which is Edward Frederick, and my public page, which is Eddie Frederick. And you just have to hit the follow. Hit the follow button on the Eddie Frederick page. And let's get started, folks. But here's the order of things today on Edification 289. First of all, a little history of the collapse of the revolution, taken from my yet unpublished book, This Is My Island. So let's start with that. You see, the events which triggered the October 1983 crisis and subsequent US and Allied forces invasion began in October of 1982, when Prime Minister Bishop was pressured to bar Cuban Ambassador Julian Rizzo from further attendance at cabinet meetings. This served to anger both the Soviets and the Cubans, and estranged the Bishop faction from hardline Grenadian Marxists led by Bernard Cord. It is said, though never substantiated, that the rumor of a rift in the leadership of the party manifested itself since then. And of course, Bishop was forced to come out on radio around midnight one night to make a statement asking people to desist from spreading rumors for fear that anyone found to be participating in any such rumor will be placed under heavy manners. I remember that like it was yesterday. It is said that the faction of the NJM, the New Jewel Movement, which was led by Bernard Cord, was known as OREL, O-R-E-L, Organization for Revolutionary Education and Liberation. This grouping, Phantom Ariel, was believed never to have fully integrated with the charismatic, well-meaning and accepted faction led by Maurice Bishop. This is where the perceived hardlined communist influence in the New Jewel movement originated, and it was thought that Bishop did not stand a chance. Folks, hit that share button, man. This is history. And if we really and truly listen to this, this is not no history somebody contrived or is pregnant with opinions. I've always told you, history is what it is, a chronicle of events that occurred. Never ever bruised and influenced by opinion. It is suspected that on account of the worsening of relations between Bishop and Cord, and the former's reluctance to speed up the rate at which Grenada were to be transformed into a Marxist-Leninist state, contributed and led to an effort on the part of the bishop to better relations with the United States. But on October 13th, Prime Minister Bishop, who had only recently returned from an official visit to the state of Czechoslovakia, and of course Hungary, passed through Cuba, where he had a short chat with President Fidel Castro, his Cuban counterpart, was deposed by the hardline faction of the PRG, the People's Revolutionary Government, and Army, on that very same day, October 13th, 1983. Let's just look at Maurice Bishop placed under house arrest. It seemed to have started with a violent disagreement and split in the ranks of the Politburo and Central Committee, with OREL members seemingly having the greater say. The army moved on the side which Bernard Cord was said to be the leader of the power struggle between, of course, Bishop and himself. On the evening of Wednesday, October 12th, 1983, the Prime Minister was placed under house arrest. Foot soldiers like Selwyn Strawn were reported to have been seen on foot, moving from workplace to workplace in St. George's, telling workers that Bernard Cord had taken over as Prime Minister, since Bishop was no longer capable of running the government. The response was that of rejection and spontaneous shouts, "We don't want Cord." Bishop was accused of not being a true revolutionary. And Grenadians were reminded that the army would tolerate absolutely no manifestation of counter-revolutionary activities. Bishop's house arrest was for 6 days at his official residence at Mount Welldale. Now, sadness coupled with confusion ruled the minds of Bishop's supporters and Grenadians in general. It was to them, as one man put it, changing the chief without informing the tribe. People, for the most part, were prepared for anything except to agree to having Bernard Cord replace Maurice Bishop. They therefore took to the streets and demonstrated in their numbers. A source close to what is now regarded as Reformed Revolutionary Military Council RMC elements is recorded as having said that during Bishop's incarceration, albeit in his home, efforts were made to keep him as far as possible from the resident Cuban ambassador Julian Rizzo. A coming together of both could have sparked a decisive response from the Cubans, who may have acted similarly as they did to the opposition in Angola in response to the appeal for help by the Cuban-backed president. The worst could have happened, since the Cuban construction workers at Point Salines at the time were generally believed to be men from the front line in Angola who were using this airport construction assignment to reorient themselves before returning to Cuba. The fervor with which opposition to the thought of Bernard Cord assuming leadership of Grenada was received forced him, Bernard Cord, to resign the position of Minister of Finance and Trade. And an additional reason given related to the rumor that he and his wife were plotting to kill Maurice Bishop, which he termed a vicious lie. An announcement came on Radio Free Grenada, the official mouthpiece of the People's Revolutionary Government, that following the announcement of the resignation of the Minister of Finance, that Mr. Nazim Burke, an economist, a young economist back then, had been appointed Minister of Finance. More speculation mounted as things became even more unclear. Unison Whiteman, People's Revolutionary Government's Minister of Foreign Affairs, was on official business in the United States and in transit in Barbados while on his way back. On Saturday, 15th October, Kenrick Radix, Minister of Fisheries and Agro-Industries at the time, attempted to stir up things a little more with a small crowd through the streets of St. George's, asking businesses to close their doors in support. He was later arrested by the armed forces. But not only were the people of Grenada confused, but the rest of the region and indeed the world. Never mind the length of time General Hudson Austin took on radio to relate what he hoped may have quelled the people's skipping spirits. More sympathy for Maurice Bishop was evoked, and people preferred to accept Bishop as against Cord any day. The people were eager to take matters into their own hands. And although there were no means of mobilizing the masses other than word of mouth, people's restlessness created assemblies of small groups all over. School children were in the forefront of reaction to the situation. All this time, the radio station was making several announcements relating to no tolerance for anyone who attempts to disturb the peace. But that did not deter the people of Grenada, who stood firm and rose up in their numbers on October 19th, 1983. Again, folks, students spearheaded the 9 a.m. mass demonstration up Lucas Street to Mount Welldale, the official residence of their preferred revolutionary leader, Maurice Bishop. In the forefront of the crowd was Unison Whiteman, Foreign Affairs Minister, who had by this time returned to Grenada, although he was advised against it by close friends in Barbados. The chaos of the ensuing period contributed to the spontaneous and steady growth of the crowd of demonstrators. Up to the time of the street march with chants of, quote, "We want, we leader," unquote, there was no hint that the demonstrators had planned to bulldoze their way into the heavily fortified residence of the Maurice Bishop to release their preferred leader from house arrest. One thing led to another, and although the sentry fired shots over the heads of the demonstrators in an effort to frighten them off, they were overpowered, and both Maurice Bishop and his Minister of Education, Jacqueline Kreff, were freed. it was quite noticeable that the chant of the demonstrators had changed by then to, quote, "We get, we leader," unquote. This must have created some measure of panic on the part of the hard-lined Marxist Leninists of the Orel grouping. The crowd then led Maurice Bishop to Fort Rupert, where he sought refuge and was treated medically by nurses from the General Hospital. Speculation is rife that treachery was involved in the move to bring Bishop to Fort Rupert. The close to 25,000 people estimated in St. George's that particular day were divided between the Market Square and Fort Rupert, now Fort George. The arrival of BTR 60 armored personnel carriers, loaded with soldiers and dangerous ammunition, was met by loud cheers, which was soon muffled by the sound of heavy artillery fire. Shooting ensued, and the thousands of people up at Fort Rupert, which is now Fort George, found themselves scampering for cover. The adrenaline rush was so powerful that people jumped 40-foot walls like they were stepping over a rock in a yard, while others had a greater challenge to scale much higher walls. Critical cases were admitted to the General Hospital, while the unfortunate leapt to their death. Later on that day, Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, Jacqueline Kreft, Minister of Education, Unison Whiteman, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Norris Bain, Minister of Housing, Vincent Noel, Vice Minister for National Mobilization, Fitzroy Bain, a trade unionist, Evelyn Maitland, auto body repairman and mechanic, Keith Haley, just a worker, were executed against a wall on which was written, "Towards greater discipline in the People's Revolutionary Army." The full list of those massacred is still unknown. The horrible events of October 19th climaxed with an announcement which was made by General Hudson Austin in a rather shaky voice at around 9:10 p.m. He announced the execution of Bishop faction of the cabinet and made no mention of the other civilians who lost their lives or were badly injured as a result of the unthinkable act of violence against the people of Grenada. He announced a 24-hour curfew, mispronouncing the word curfew, which at least triggered a bit of laughter in such a trying time by, of course, the light-hearted. Anyone seen outside of their homes was to be shot on sight. A 16-man Revolutionary Military Council RMC was formed with General Hudson Austin as chairman. That was announced to take charge of the country's affairs. The other members of the RMC were Lieutenant Colonel Liam James, head of intelligence, and a member of the Central Committee, the CC. Ewart Lane, member of the Central Committee. Tan Bartholomew and Ian St. Bernard, both members of the Central Committee. Chris Stroud, Major in the People's Revolutionary Army. Major Keith Roberts, Major Basil Guy Hagan, Captain Lester Redhead, Major Huey Romaine, Ashley Ramfolks, Rudolph Ogilvie, Ayman Abdullah, Raymond Nelson, Kenrick Fraser, and Leon Cornwall. It is believed that the other members of the Central Committee who worked closely with the RMC were Bernard Cord, his wife Phyllis, and Selwyn Strawn. The events as they unfolded would have no doubt horrified the outside world and must have helped to catalyze or speed up the actions which followed. The 4-day curfew caught many without food in their homes, and the granting of a 4-hour reprieve, though welcomed, was nowhere close to adequate to obtain what was needed, since the queues at the shops were too long. Quite literally, the revolution was riddled with enemies from within, and hence it was easy for the enemies outside to harm it to the point of disabling it altogether. This has left us with an even sadder aftermath. For 12 years later, we ended up with the biggest con rising to political prominence, making him and his close cohorts prosperous, while he nickeled and dimed his followers and supporters and ostracized opposers. No real progress was ever realized after the crash of the progressive revolution, which was people-centered, even though its ideological plurality ingrained in the several youthful and enthusiastic leaders brought it to a crashing end. Folks, I hope you understand. If there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. When we come back, we go into the second quadrant of this sharing today. And we will explain that particular African proverb. If there is no enemy within, the enemy outside, without, can do us absolutely no harm. Let's take a little break and we'll come right back.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
Hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
To Summer Special at Country Cold Store. Get ready to beat the heat with amazing deals on frozen meats and chilled products. Choose from a wide variety of top quality products available at our wholesale department and mini mart. Stock up today and enjoy unbeatable freshness and savings this summer. Call us now for more information at 440-3335. This offer is valid while stocks last.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. I see some people asking if certain people couldn't tag them. Folks, do what you need. If you find people are missing, tag them, man. Come on. This is a community we're building, you know. It's a movement we're building. Not the movement, but a movement that we're building here. So let's get it on. Folks, we have a lot of ground to cover today, and it's a very interesting program, if I may say so myself. You see, if there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And that's a very, how should I say, philosophical statement. And what is philosophy? Simple thinking that runs deep. A lot of you people, just by how you act, how you live your life, you are your own enemy. Nobody could do it better than you. Yet for all, you blame other people for your failings, for your misgivings. You know, it's as if, you know the saying, you hide your belly, you really hide your belly in truth, because you're blaming other people and you wouldn't change your ways. If you keep on doing what you're doing, folks, it is quite obvious you will keep on getting what you're getting. If you don't like what you are getting, the advice is to stop doing what you're doing, do something else. So many people are stuck in their life, making the same mistake over and over again. Well, why are you stuck on the same mistake when you can make, there's so many new mistakes to make. And the more mistakes you make is the more experiences you amass in your life, because you're supposed to know, if fire burn you once, don't let it burn you twice. You're supposed to know, if a snake bites you once, don't let it bite you twice. Hello? But we see people going around in circles. As I said just now, they have the source of knowledge in their hands, but instead they stretch it out, they stretch up their mouth, and they're taking picture. Eyelash 40 foot long, makeup, cake up on their face, but it's picture, but nothing inside here. And the same little craft they had in their hands, that same little piece of instrument embodies and contains the source of so much knowledge. When they go to social media, they gravitate to the bacchanal, the mawet, the things that keep them where they are. And they love it. Scandal. You know, somebody saw me the other day, and this is supposed to be an educated person. I want to say an educated person, folks, for all intents and purposes, is supposed to be a sophisticated person, not an ordinary jackass. But is going to meet me to share with me what they see somebody on Facebook say about me. I say, hold on a minute. You have access to those people on Facebook. Well, what is your level? How come I don't have access to them? How come I don't have access to them? This tells me about you. And I had to remind the person, your diet is not only what you put in your mouth. Your diet is what you put in your brain. Your diet is what you focus your eyes on. Your diet are the things you do. Your diet are the things you're attracted to. You getting the message, folks? It's sad. But who am I to be telling this? I never been to university. I never been. So who am I to tell this person with all this university learning? And you could see the individual was ashamed. And that is one of the reasons why, folks, I tell you, when I go out, I remain very cordial. Hi, man, how you doing? But leave me alone after that, you know. Because the nonsense, the familiarity that breeds contempt that follows. Oh, Gede. People here are too gutter-minded. And they don't realize they reflect their gutterism just about every day. And it's really sad. Again, I ask, who am I really to be finding this? Folks, you'd be surprised to know when you withdraw from society, you become more analytical. You become more able to process. You become more able to be at one with yourself. And being so comfortable with oneself is a dangerous thing, folks. dangerous level of maturity to reach. So if there's no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us absolutely no harm. Of course, powerful quote, often attributed to being an African proverb. As a well-researched podcaster, I have crafted a delivery that is engaging, insightful, and peppered with the zip you're accustomed to receiving from me, folks. Pull up your chair, plug in, but when you plug in, make sure you put the power switch on so that while you listen, you can be fully engaged for all that we have to offer here today. I trust you find this riveting, insightful, and where and when necessary, even humorous. So as you know, Edification 289 is a show where we take standard wisdom and we run it through the modern life blender without seeking relevance. Woo! This little situation there that just occurred with a little pregnant with misinformation and nonsense. Hey, specially crafted. You didn't see all these old dead weights, all the masked men and masked women who were unmasked by the greatest con that ever came through Grenada's political avenues, seeking relevance using this particular misinformation about all satellite and all kind of equipment at airport and Antigua refuse. Well, I put out something here this morning because ABS said they were never asked anything about putting up equipment in Antigua. It's sad. Today, folks, we're tackling a quote that's been doing the rounds on social media, especially Instagram. Carved into wooden signs and probably tattooed on at least one enlightened yoga instructor's bicep. It goes like this. When you have no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do you no harm. I think you must think that sounds beautiful. A little bit kumbaya, doesn't it? But what does it actually mean? It is suggesting that we just that we just give our external enemies a big hug and invite them over for a drink and something to eat? I say hell to the no 1,000 times. Nothing tal go so, as the Antiguans would say. This isn't about ignoring real world problems, folks. This is a psychological battle plan. And today, we're going to expose the number one saboteur of your peace, your progress, and let's be honest, your ability to just have a decent, drama-free day every day. For you deserve it. You see that saboteur in your life? Hello, is you. It is time that you take full charge and lay the groundwork for a life that is without pretense, without falseness, and trying to please other people just to be included, only to find out in the end that your efforts were all in vain. More specifically, many of us have a committee of unqualified, hypercritical, and frankly, kind of rude voices living in our heads rent-free. Who is this enemy inside? Let's put a face to the name, or several faces. I like to think of it as your own personal, poorly managed boardroom. First, you have the inner critic. This is the guy who, after you give a presentation, leans back in his leather chair and says, well, Jane, in accounting, she looked bored. I think you saw her check her watch. You're a fraud. We should just quit and become a bookkeeper. So that is the inner critic in you, talking to you. Then there is the catastrophizer. This one takes a single piece of bad news, a flat tire, a terse email, and spins it into an Oscar-winning disaster movie. A flat tire? This means we'll be late. Being late means we'll get fired. Getting fired means we'll lose the house. We'll have to live in the car, the very car with a flat tire. It's a nightmare. How many of you are like that, folks? And we can't forget the people pleaser. Ooh. That's the enemy's weapon, is resentment. Resentment is that enemy's weapon. It says, sure, you can borrow my favorite sweater and my power tools and my entire personality for the weekend. I don't mind at all. But then guess what? You sit at home seething, wondering why everyone is so demanding. That is a real chupidi. The people pleaser is normally a chupidi. These aren't just quick personality traits, folks. This is the enemy within. And when they're in charge, the enemy without doesn't need to lift a finger. You see, a critical comment from a colleague isn't just a comment. It's the fuel the inner critic uses to burn your confidence to the ground. A minor setback isn't just a setback. It's a full-blown prophecy for the catastrophizer. The external event is the match. The enemy within is the gasoline that you've been storing in your own mind. The battle plan, evicting your inner toddler, folks. We've identified the problem. It's us. Now what? How do we achieve this mythical state of having no enemy on the inside? We don't. Not perfectly, at least, if at all. The goal isn't to achieve a state of Zen, like perfection, where you never have a negative thought. Oh, no. That's not a human being at all. That's a very serene house plant. The goal is to become the boss of your own brain. Stop volunteering to fit into someone's views of you, just because you feel your very existence and even progress depend on it. Name and shame, man. You have to catch these voices in the act. The next time you feel that spiral of anxiety, shame, or rage, stop and ask, who is talking right now? Is it the catastrophizer? Is it the people pleaser? Give it a silly name. I call my catastrophizer Jerry. It's hard to take a thought seriously when you picture it as a man in a soggy trench coat yelling about the end times, Armageddon. And even according to the book of Revelations in the Bible, keep quoting that for you. Folks, there's one fellow I know, I avoid he completely. Every time I would encounter he is some last days nonsense talk. And he looked like the last days for himself. He looked miserable. Folks, you must talk back with humor. Talk back with humor. You don't have to believe every thought you have. When the inner critic says you completely messed that up, you can literally talk back out loud if you are alone. In your head, of course, if you're in public. Thank you for your input, Emma. But your services are not required at this time. I am handling it, Emma. My favorite technique comes from the therapist I interviewed some time ago. She calls it, and then what? You see, folks, when the catastrophizer says, you're going to get fired, you calmly ask, okay, and then what? Well, then I'll be unemployed. And then what? I won't be able to pay my rent. And then what? I'll have to move in with my parents. And then what? So you see, you keep going until the scenario becomes so absurd, it loses its power. There's a spoiler alert here. Usually ends with you living in a yurt and befriending a raccoon. What is that? It takes the sting out. All too often, folks, people used to ask me if I were not afraid of what the boyfriend could do to me back in the day of my more controversial days on radio. It's so funny. I used to ask them, and? They know not to ask me that these days because they have seen that I still continue to enjoy a very high standard of living and quality of life in spite of all he attempted against me. While they who stood for nothing continue to eat the bread the devil need, and in some cases, notwithstanding all that they have accumulated materially, as they flew under his radar, they have no life of quality. And they lived without standards and stand for nothing. Interestingly, I remain consistent and true to myself up to this day. But guess what? Still enjoying, and more so, a high standard of living and quality of life. You see, this is the real work. It's not sexy. It's mental hygiene. It's brushing and flossing for your brain, and it makes you bulletproof. Because when your boss is having a bad day and snaps at you, if you have no enemy inside, it doesn't confirm your deepest insecurity. It just becomes data. Huh? Jerry is having a bad day, boy. Full stop. No spiral. You see the superpower of the unbothered? What happens when you start to evict this enemy within? Ay, ay, ay. The external world doesn't change, but your relationship to it transforms entirely. In fact, you may find yourself alone in this most difficult time of your life, which will surely make you wise, mature, and fearless. You see that thing your mother-in-law says that used to ruin your entire holiday dinner? It becomes background noise. A rejection letter, it becomes feedback, not a verdict on your worth. You see, you become like one of those inflatable clown punching bags, the ones with the sand in the bottom. You know that one? You can knock it down, but it just wobbles and pops right back up. The external enemy can punch all it wants, but you have the internal stability that stands in the bottom that keeps you upright. You see, when a man steps away from the noise and locks in on himself, life starts to align for him. Isn't that interesting? Life just starts to align for him. And there is no turning back. Because when your life is in alignment, oh, the sky is the limit. In the quiet, peace deepens, clarity sharpens, and drive reignites. That's not isolation, that's transformation. This isn't about becoming passive, folks. It is about becoming powerful. The energy you use to spend on inner turmoil, the anxiety, the second guessing, the resentment, is now freed up. You can use it to actually solve problems, to be creative, to connect with people who matter. The enemy outside loses its power because it loses its primary collaborator, you. So here's your mission. Should you choose to accept it, that is. For the next 24 hours, I want you to be a spy in your own mind. Just sit and listen. Don't judge, just observe. When you feel that familiar rush of self-doubt, or that flare of anger, or that knot of anxiety, I want you to ask one question. Who is in the room right now? Is it your inner critic or your catastrophizer? And then put all the kindness and humor that you can muster. Show them the door. You are the boss. This is your mind. This is your life. The quote isn't, if you have no enemy outside, you'll be happy. Oh no, it's quite the opposite. It says your inner peace is the ultimate defense against the chaos of the world. Build that fortress, and suddenly the dragons outside seem a lot less scary. If this resonated with you, share it with a friend, folks, who needs to evict their own inner Jerry. Don't let the committee outside win just because you are inclined to always sabotage yourself. If there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And one of the enemies we have inside of us, folks, is greed. Greed causes us to do all sorts of stupid stuff. Collaborating with the enemies outside, getting us caught in the end and disgraced. Let's take a little break and we'll come back with more.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during EDDIE-FICATION are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Summer special at Country Cold Store. Get ready to beat the heat with amazing deals on frozen meats and meat products. Choose from a wide variety of top quality products available at our wholesale department and mini mart. Stock up today and enjoy unbeatable freshness and savings this summer. Call us now for more information at 440-3335. This offer is valid while stocks last.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. So welcome back. Welcome back. Folks, in context of all that we have covered so far, if a mostly poor and vulnerable people do not know who they are and operate in a simple manner, as a matter of course, they will answer to anything. You don't know who you are, you will answer to anything. Let's therefore take a closer look at what happens when people volunteer to be manipulated by inferior minds posing as leaders whose main aim is to lie with the hope of getting to the top and then lie to maintain their hoped-for positions. Of course, this is the critical real-world application of everything we've discussed thus far. It's where the internal enemy meets the predatory external force with devastating consequences. It becomes very embarrassing how much we see poor people worshipping the people who made them poor and kept them poor. Folks, some of you might want this for posterity. So here am I. I'm going to share it. I'm going to put it in the comment section so that you can have it, have access to it. Because in truth and in fact, not for the life of me, can I understand why, poor people continue to worship the people who made them poor and keep them poor, kept them poor. Let's break down this tragic transaction, the tragic trade, why we volunteer for our own manipulation. We've talked about the enemy within, the critic, the catastrophizer. We've talked about how a people who don't know who they are will answer to anyone and anything, which we are no strangers to, as they all are around us. But now we have to ask the most painful question. Why? Why would a person or a people volunteer to be manipulated by leaders who are so clearly, often blatantly inferior? What do they hand over? Why do they hand over, their power to minds that are just mediocre? They are not even just mediocre, but are often malicious. And you see the malice. Well, I prefer to pronounce it, to say the maliciousness, because that sounds worse than malice. Why do they continue to allow the irrelevant of our society to successfully seek relevance through them every time? My simple answer is because they do not pay attention. You see, if they pay attention, they will become truth tellers in ugly societies and become mirrors to all the fakes of our society. You see, authenticity is really powerful. Our people do not hand over their power to fools because they're stupid. That's the easy, arrogant answer. The truth is far more human and far more tragic. It's because the lie sold by inferior leaders is more comforting, more filling than the void of their own reality. Let's reframe this. It's not that people are blindly following a lie. They are accepting a trade. That's all. They are making a calculated, albeit desperate bargain. They are trading a reality that is complex, painful, and disempowering for a story that is simple, flattering, and provides a target for their pain. So here's the deal they are offered. The inferior leaders say, your poverty is not a complex result of history, economics, and systemic failure. No, it is the direct fault of that group over there. You hear lie? You see, they trade the overwhelming, unsolvable feeling of economic vulnerability for the clear, actionable emotion of hatred. Hatred is a powerful energy source. It feels better than helplessness. The inferior leader says, your feeling of being less than is not because you lack education or opportunity. It is because your inherent greatness has been stolen from you by a conspiracy. You hear lie? They trade the shame of their own perceived inadequacy for the intoxicating mantle of victimized nobility. It's a tragic upgrade. Being a wronged hero is a much better identity than being an overlooked nobody. The inferior leader goes on. You don't need to do the hard work of self-examination and community building. Oh no. You just need to have faith in us, and we will restore what is rightfully yours. You hear lie? That is lie. They trade the burdensome responsibility of building their own future for the comforting passivity of devotion. It is easier to kneel than to stand on shaky ground. You see, the inferior minds, posing as leaders, are masters of this specific trade. They are not great philosophers, economists, statesmen, or stateswomen. A matter of fact, they lack scholarship. Their genius lies in their psychological acuity. They are master diagnosticians of public pain. They can pinpoint the collective enemy within, the shame, the fear, the insecurity, and they offer a simple external scapegoat to replace it. Yet for all, we can see them dancing and prancing to a common gospel song and pretending to the max to be Christians. Isn't that something? They don't build people up. They simply redirect the pre-existing internal poison outward. You see, the enemy within, the self-hatred, is transformed into the enemy without. And the leaders position themselves as the only ones who can protect them from this monster they just helped them create. And what about the lying? The constant brazen lying to get to the top and stay there. For the vulnerable, a confident lie is often more trustworthy than a hesitant truth. You see, truth is nuanced. Truth admits failure. Truth says it's complicated. A lie is simple. A lie is certain. A lie is strong. So when you are drowning in a complexity of a difficult life, you don't throw a life preserver made of forewarnings and comments. No, you throw a simple solid rope of absolute conviction. Even if that rope is attached to nothing but thin air, it feels solid in the moment. The inferior leader is a master of rope selling, while the inferior follower is a master of rope buying. Their main aim isn't to lead, it's to maintain the dependency. They are not farmers helping you to grow your own food. Hell no, they're not interested in that. They are like drug dealers instead. And the drug is the story they sell you. They are just cons, posing with you in the church regularly to convince their simple followers that they are Christians and holier than thou. They need you to stay hooked on the narrative of grievance and external blame, because the moment you wake up and realize your own power is the moment they become irrelevant. Don't think they don't know this. They do. And hence, they perpetuate their lies and make up new stories that trend with you and keep you hooked on the drugs they peddle as true drug dealers, keeping their customers hooked. Yes, they would complain when they receive the tremendous pushback that they keep receiving from soldiers who volunteer to stand in the gap for truth and cleanliness going forward. Interestingly, they will not take a day off. and so too the defenders of truth and cleanliness must never take a day off. What is the way out, though? How is this cycle broken? It's not primarily through fact-checking. You cannot logic a person out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. It's broken by healing the wound the liar is exploiting. It's done by offering a better, more empowering trade. Instead of trading pain for hatred, we must help people trade helplessness for agency, no matter how small. A community garden is a more powerful rebuttal to a demagogue than 1,000 debunking articles. So, yes, we keep pushing back, but it must not stop there. It must proceed to the place where solid evidence of progress and transformation needs to be highlighted time and time again. Just like the negatives are spewed regularly with the hope that they will stick and become the reality of the people the cons target, so the evidence of transformation must be pushed with priority and regularity, so their rhetoric could have less and less effect on their subjects. Instead of trading shame for victimhood, we must help people trade inadequacy for dignity, recognizing the inherent worth and story of every person. Instead of trading responsibility for devotion, we must champion the difficult, messy, and glorious work of self-definition and community building. You see, the ultimate resistance to the inferior leader is not just voting them out and keeping them out. It is the quiet, relentless work of knowing who you are. It is the building of this inner citadel, so strong that cheap, flattering lies of the con artists simply bounce off, because you are already living in a house of truth that you built yourself. You see, when people are no longer poor in spirit, they become immune to the salesman of poisonous identities. They stop volunteering for their own manipulation because they have finally found a leader they can trust, the one they see in the mirror. Look at the powerful example our current holder of the office of Prime Minister is showing us daily. Wow! He will not be sucked into the gutter with the gutter rats posing as leaders on the other side, together with their mouthpieces and incoherent scribes. Our current leader is showing us what a real leader should look like, because he knows that a parrot talks too much but can't fly high. An eagle is silent but has the ability to touch the sky. A lion is silent but is the king of the jungle. This is the power of silence and focus. And so, with his head down, shoulders to the wheel, he plods along with the people's business. No time for mawet and gutter sniping. This must infuriate the gutter snipes and the inferiors posing as leaders. So you see, if there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. Isn't that beautiful, folks? When we come back with the final segment on this Heroes Day 2025.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
Hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Summer special at Country Cold Store. Get ready to beat the heat with amazing deals on frozen meats and chilled products. Choose from a wide variety of top quality products available at our wholesale department and mini mart. Stock up today and enjoy unbeatable freshness and savings this summer. Call us now for more information at 440-3335. This offer is valid while stocks last.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful. So we now go into a final segment, and then we say farewell to have a lovely rest of the day and enjoy our given holiday tomorrow in lieu of today, the 19th of October falling on a Sunday. Folks, for those of you just coming into the room, thank you for coming. Welcome. Please do the honorable thing because it's not too late. It's better late than dead on time. Why so many people among us behave in such a way that convinces any of us with a modicum of sense that they need to be protected from themselves? Of course, folks, this is the final frustrating layer of this entire discussion. The point where philosophical insight meets daily exasperation or even frustration. It's actually the question that every sane person asks when watching a significant part of humanity make choices that are so clearly against their own best interest. Let's break this down, because this is really a maddening phenomenon. The self-sabotage syndrome. Why we need protection from our own choices. We have been talking about enemies within and predators without. But this question, this is the one you whisper to a friend after seeing a headline that defies all reason. It's a sigh you sigh when someone you love walks directly into a disaster that you clearly outlined for them and they refuse to listen to. Why do so many of us behave in ways that scream, for the love of all that is holy, someone intervene? I am a danger to myself. It's because the part of our brain that feels is often at war with the part that thinks. And for many, the feeling side has launched a successful coup. Let's be clear. This isn't about intelligence. This is about cognitive wiring and emotional drivers. You see, people with a modicum of sense are often operating with a different primary engine. They are running on the logic OS, operating system. But the behavior we're talking about, that's running on emotion operating system, which is an older, buggier, but far more powerful system. So here's what running on the background of emotion operating system. This is the code that screams, I want relief now, even if it costs me a catastrophe later. The brain heavily discounts future rewards and punishments in favor of immediate gratification. What it looks like: taking a payday loan with 400% interest to buy a new smartphone. You see, the immediate joy of the new device completely overwhelms the abstract future pain of debt. Why it convinces us they need protection? Because they are quite literally incapable of feeling the future. It's not real to them. Only the now is real. To the logic operating system user, this looks like insanity. To the emotion operating system user, it's perfectly rational trade. Social validation loop. You see, human beings are tribal. Our ancestors' greatest fear wasn't hunger or predators, it was exile. Being cast out of the tribe was a death sentence. That evolutionary fear is still wired in. What it looks like: a teenager vaping because their friends do. An adult holding a political belief, not because they've examined it, but because it's the badge of their tribe. The immediate terror of social ostracism is greater than the abstract fear of lung cancer or being misinformed. Why it convinces us that they need protection? They are prioritizing tribal membership over their own physical and intellectual well-being. They are allowing the tribe to do their thinking for them. But what about the agency avoidance protocol? Confronting the full, complex truth of your life is terrifying. It means accepting that you are ultimately responsible for your choices and your outcomes. For many, that weight is too heavy to bear. What it looks like: embracing conspiracy theories. It's easier to believe a shadowy cabal controls everything than to accept that the world is chaotic and random, and that your success or failure is largely in your own hands. It's the ultimate outsourcing of responsibility. Why it convinces us they need protection? Because they have voluntarily given up their own agency. They have become a passenger in their own life, which means they are one charismatic but inferior driver away from being steered off a cliff. So when we see this behavior, what are we really seeing is a human being hijacked by their own evolutionary baggage. The parts of them that were designed to help them survive seek immediate rewards, stick with the tribe, avoid unnecessary stress, are now malfunctioning in the modern world those instincts were built for. Were not built for, sorry. Now, they don't need to be protected because they are stupid. They need to be protected from their own outdated firmware. We don't have to look too far to see the number of old-timers who are sticking around with their expired thoughts in these current times and insisting that they be heard and thinking they are relevant. Unfortunately, too many people younger than they are remain hooked into and connected to them and their uninspiring, misplaced thinking, not realizing that their energies are sapped by these old parasites. You see, the person buying the magic weight loss pill isn't making a rational cost-benefit analysis. They are desperately trying to silence the internal critic that calls them unattractive. The enemy within is creating a demand that the enemy without is all too happy to supply. But there's a compassionate frustration. The feeling that people need to be protected from themselves is a natural response from any logic operating system user watching the emotion operating system meltdown. It's a compassionate frustration. But the solution isn't just to build a cage around them. The solution is to help them upgrade their operating system, to teach emotional literacy alongside financial literacy, to build communities that validate critical thinking as much as they validate belonging, to help people make friends with that enemy within so they stop looking for poisonous allies without. We can't protect people from themselves forever, but we can, with immense patience, help them learn how to build their own internal protections. We can help them become their own guardian. You see, why do so many Grenadians behave, their behavior rather, and regular expressions mimic enemies of the state? That's a wonderful follow-up question. This is a very specific and charged question that moves our discussion from the general human condition to a particular national context. It's crucial to approach this with both historical nuance and psychological insight, avoiding sweeping generalizations while acknowledging very real perceptions. As your well-researched podcaster, folks, here's an approach that tackles this delicate subject: the mimicry of the wounded, unpacking a national paradox. We've been journeying through the leadership of the landscape of the human psyche. And we've been exploring why we sabotage ourselves and volunteer for our own manipulation. But now we turn to a question that is both poignant and particular. Why in the beautiful, resilient nation of Grenada, the Isle of Spice, do we so often see behaviors and expressions that seem to mimic the enemies of state? This isn't just an academic question. It's a question of national soul searching. It's a frustration of watching our lesser fortunates vote for a party that offers nothing but empty patronage and opportunities for its leaders to get rich and live well while throwing regular crumbs in the direction of its followers. It's the despair of seeing a sister share misinformation that undermines our own community's health. It's the confusion of hearing rhetoric that sounds like it was copied from the playbook of the old nastiness and all those who do not wish Grenada well. To understand this, we must look at three powerful forces: history, which a lot of you seem to be allergic to, the psychology of the wound, and of course the modern cons. You see, Grenada's history is not a linear story of progress. It's a story of profound and rapid upheavals: colonialism, revolution, foreign intervention, political instability driven by dishonest, conniving cons whose philosophy is more about their personal gains than the nation's collective prosperity. For a significant portion of the modern population, the state has not been a consistent protector or even benefactor. It's been, at various points, an oppressor, a revolutionary vanguard, an invading force, and a fractured yet deceitful entity. When people have experienced the state as an unpredictable or even hostile force, their relationship to it is fundamentally broken. You can't change that. They don't see the state as us, they see it as them. And when you see the state as them, adopting the rhetoric and behavior of its enemies isn't an act of national treason. It's an act of personal and communal defiance. It's a way of saying, you are not my master, which is something I've been saying from 1995 until 2022 for the most part. But let's just look at the psychology of the unhealed wound. This is where the enemy within meets national history. The collective trauma of the revolution and its aftermath left deep psychological wounds, wounds of distrust, betrayal, and fractured identity. A wounded psyche often engages in self-sabotage. On a national scale, this looks like what? The catastrophizer nationally. Why build a business? The government will just tax it or it will collapse again. This isn't logic. It's a trauma response. The people pleaser internationally, quickly adopting the cultural and political fads of larger, more powerful nations, not because they are good for Grenada, but because there's a deep-seated, unhealed need for external validation and belonging on a world stage. The inner critic collectively, folks, a relentless focus on Grenada's flaws to the point of believing the worst about the nation's potential. This internalized criticism makes the population incredibly vulnerable to external critics who confirm their biases. So when you are governed by these internal enemies, you are primed to answer the call of any external voice that promises to slay them, even if that external voice is itself an enemy. But what about the modern cons? The digital inferior leaders. Enter the 21st century manipulator. They don't need to land on Maurice Bishop International Airport. They land in your pocket through social media. They offer the same toxic trade we discussed, but now perfectly targeted. They tell the disillusioned Grenadian, your struggle isn't due to complex global economics. It's the fault of the current administration and their foreign masters, trading complexity for simple hatred. We see it playing out every day by the National Nasty Party. Your feeling of being left behind isn't about a shifting world. It's because your Grenadian pride has been stolen by globalists, trading inadequacy for victimized nobility. You don't need to understand policy. You just need to distrust everything the government says and trust only our alternative facts. Trading responsibility for what? Devotion. So the behavior that looks like mimicking enemies of the state is often a perfect storm, a historical distrust of the state apparatus, amplified by unhealed collective trauma and expertly weaponized by con artists with modern digital access. The people sharing the destabilizing memes are not necessarily paid agents alone. They're more likely wounded, disillusioned citizens whose enemy within, their distrust, their shame, their failure over the years, their despair, have found a perverse sense of purpose and belonging in a digital army that feels like the only one fighting for them. Folks, we also have in that mix some failures, people whose lives failed mammothly. They moved from a could be to a has been without ever being an is, arrogant like hell, self-destructive to the core. You're not surprised to see them all over making posters and posting all sorts of nonsense, because this is the last post, the last chance. So they have nothing to lose. They lost it all already. on account of their poor attitudes and abject arrogance. So they're coming for who they envy. They're coming for who they are jealous of with all their malice. And as I say, worse said, with all their maliciousness. You see, the solution is not to label fellow Grenadians as enemies alone, you know. No. That only helps to deepen the wound. The solution is to offer a more compelling, more healing identity than the one the manipulators are selling. If we follow the vibrations, energy, and frequency of our current Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, we can't go wrong. He never allows himself to be taken off course. Oh no, no distraction. He stays the course in spite of all the cries of the relevance seekers among us. Folks, we need to build a state that is consistently and transparently a servant of the people, not a predator, in order for us to repair the broken trust. We must make every effort to see to it that the predators never return to office. Those low-grade gutter snipes that are outside there barking and behaving wild and wassy. Let them stay in the gutter. Keep them there. Acknowledging and addressing the collective trauma through honest national dialogue, not by pretending the revolution did not happen, or we did not drop the ball and allowed cons to take control from 1995 to 2022 for the most part, or by using those two things as political weapons. Championing a Grenadian identity that is confident, forward-looking, and rooted in our incredible strength. But our incredible strength is combined by our culture, our resilience, our community spirit, so that we are no longer so vulnerable to the flattery of foreign agendas. You see, the goal is to heal the enemy within, so that the enemies without lose their most powerful weapon, our own unresolved pain. When we know who we are as a people, we will no longer answer to the voices, foreign or domestic, that ask us to mimic our own destruction. If there is no enemy inside, the enemy outside can do us absolutely no harm. Folks, I am in, I'm out, and I'm gone. Thank you for joining. Continue to share. See you next week at the same time, same place, for more extraordinary programming. So until then, stay safe, stay well. Remain vigilant and stay lifted, but stay focused. If you want to know what focus looks like, cue into Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. He is the embodiment of focus. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Just type in my name, no fake name, Edward or Eddie Frederick. Subscribe, like, and share. And be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as readily as I deliver them to you. Take good care, folks, on this National Heroes Day. Enjoy your holiday tomorrow in lieu of National Heroes Day, October 19th, falling on Sunday. Take care of your wonderful selves. And remember, whatever you do, do it for Grenada. Grenada needs you. All the very best.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
So summer special at Country Cold Store. Get ready to beat the heat with amazing deals on frozen meats and chilled products. Choose from a wide variety of top quality products available at our wholesale department and Mini Mart. Stock up today and enjoy unbeatable freshness and savings this summer. Call us now for more information at 440-3335. This offer is valid while stocks last.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.